Punchinello, Volume 1, No. 21, the 20th of August, 1870 ***** Conant's patent binders for Punchinello, to preserve the paper for binding, will be sent post-paid, on receipt of $1, by Punchinello Publishing Co., 83 Nassau Street, New York City. J. M. Sprague is the authorized agent of Punchinello for the New England states, to procure subscriptions, and to employ canvassers. Harrison Bradford & Co.'s steel pens. These pens are of a finer quality, more durable, and cheaper than any other pen in the market. Special attention is called to the following grades, as being better suited for business purposes than any pen manufactured: the 50522 and the anticorrosive. We recommend for bank and office use. D. Appleton & Co., sole agents for United States. Punchinello Volume 1, Number 21. Saturday, the 20th of August, 1870. Published by the Punchinello Publishing Company, 83 Nassau Street, New York. The Mystery of Mr. E. Drood, by Orpheus C. Kerr, continued in this number. See 15th page for extra premiums. Applications for advertising in Punchinello should be addressed to J. Nickinson, room number 4, 83 Nassau Street. To newsdealers. Punchinello's Monthly. The weekly numbers for July, bound in a handsome cover, is now ready. Price 50 cents. The trade supplied by the American News Company, who are now prepared to receive orders. First and Avril steam, lithograph, and letterpress printers, embossers, engravers, and label manufacturers. Sketches and estimates furnished upon application. 23 Platt Street and 20-22 Gold Street, P.O. Box 2845. New York. Charles C. Chatfield & Co., New Haven, Conn., have just published The American Colleges and the American Public by Prof. Noah Porter, D.D., of Yale College. Opinions of the book. I have read it with very deep interest. President MCCOSH, Princeton. An excellent and valuable work. President Cummings, Wesleyan University. Able and just presentations of our colleges to the public. President Anderson, Rochester University. The discussion is not only very reasonable, but thorough, comprehensive and wise. President Brown, Hamilton College. An able and scholarly review of the system of instruction pursued in our American colleges. Prof. Francis Bowen, Harvard. Unique, profound, discriminating. Prof. L. H. Atwater, Princeton. The best book ever published on this subject of collegiate education. Springfield Republican. The book contains 285 pages, is printed on a fine quality of tinted paper, is handsomely bound, and is sold by all booksellers for $1.50, and sent for the same, postage paid, to any address, by the publishers. New collection of Yale songs. Just published. Songs of Yale. a new collection of the songs of Yale, with music. Edited by Charles S. Eliot, Class of 1867. 16 Mo. 126 pages. Price in extra cloth, $1, in super extra cloth, beveled boards, tinted paper, gilt edges, $1.50. University Series. Educational and scientific lectures, addresses and essays, brought out in neat pamphlet form, of uniform style and price. On the Physical Basis of Life. By Professor T. H. Huxley, LL.D., FRS. With an introduction by a professor in Yale College. 12 Mo. pp. 36. Price 25 cents. The interest of Americans in this lecture by Professor Huxley can be judged from the great demand for it. The 5,000 is now being sold. 2. The Correlation of Vital and Physical Forces. By Professor George F. Barker, M.D., of Yale College. A lecture delivered before Inst. NYPP 36. Price 25 CTS. Though this is a question of cold science, the author handles it with ability, and invests it with interest. A series of notes appended is valuable as a reference to works quoted. Prof. R.I. Press. 3. As regards protoplasm, in relation to Professor Huxley's Physical Basis of Life. By J. Hutchinson Sterling, FRCS pp 72. Price 25 cents. By far the ablest reply to Professor Huxley which has been written. Other valuable lectures and essays will soon be published in this series. Address: Charles C. Chatfield & Co., No. 460 Chapel Street, New Haven, Conn. Foley's Gold Pens. The best and cheapest. 256 Broadway. Wevel and Hammer, Wood Engravers, 208 Broadway, New York. $2 to Albany and Troy. The Dayline steamboats C. Vibert and Daniel Drew, commencing the 31st of May, will leave Vestry St. Pier at 8:45, and 34th St. at 9 a.m., landing at Yonkers, New York, and Tarrytown by ferryboat, Cozzens, West Point, Cornwall, Newburgh, Poughkeepsie, Rhinebeck, Bristol, Catskill, Hudson, and New Baltimore. A special train of broad-gauge cars in connection with the day boats will leave on arrival at Albany, commencing the 20th of June, for Sharon Springs. Fare $4.25 from New York and for Cherry Valley. The steamboat Seneca will transfer passengers from Albany to Troy. Bowling Green Savings Bank, 33 Broadway, New York. Open every day from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Deposits of any sum, from 10 cents to $10,000 will be received. 6% interest, free of government tax, commences on the 1st of every month. Henry Smith, President. Reeves E. Selms, Secretary. Walter Roche, Edward Hogan, Vice Presidents. Established 1866. J.A.S.R. Nichols, M.D. W.M. J. Rolfe. AM Editor's Boston Journal of Chemistry. Devoted to the science of home life, the arts, agriculture, and medicine. $1 per year. Journal and Punchinello, without premium. $4 send for specimen copy address, Journal of Chemistry, 150 Congress Street, Boston. J. Nickinson begs to announce to the friends of Punchinello, residing in the country, that, for their convenience, he has made arrangements by which, on receipt of the price of any standard book published, the same will be forwarded, postage paid. Parties desiring catalogues of any of our publishing houses can have the same forwarded by enclosing 2 stamps. Office of Punchinello Publishing Co., 83 Nassau Street. P.O. Box 2783. News dealers. On railroads, steamboats, and at watering places, will find the monthly numbers of Punchinello for April, May, June, and July, an attractive and saleable work. Single copies price 50 CTS. For trade price address American News Company, or Punchinello Publishing & Co., 83 Nassau Street. Henry L. Stevens, Artist, No. 160 Fulton Street, New York. Geo. B. Boland, Draftsman and Designer, No. 160 Fulton Street, Room No. 11, New York. The Mystery of Mr. E. Drood. An adaptation. By Orpheus C. Kerr. Chapter 14. Cloves for 3. Christmas Eve in Bumsteadville. Christmas Eve all over the world, but especially where the English language is spoken. No sooner does the first facetious star wink upon this eve, than all the English-speaking millions of this Boston-crowned earth begin casting off their hatreds, meannesses, uncharities, and Carlylisms, as a garment, and, in a beautiful spirit of no objections to anybody, proceed to think what can be done for the poor in the way of sincerely wishing them well. The princely merchant, in his counting-room, involuntarily experiences the softening, humanizing influence of the hour, and, in tones tremulous with unwonted emotion, privately directs his chief clerk to tell all the other clerks, that, on this night of all the round year, they may, before leaving the store at 10 o'clock, take almost any article from that slightly damaged auction stock down in the front cellar, at actual cost price. This, they are to understand, implies their employer's hearty wish of a Merry Christmas to them, and is a sign that, in the grand spirit of the festal season, he can even forget and forgive those unnatural leaner entry clerks who are always whining for more than their allotted $7 a week. The president of the great railroad corporation, in the very middle of a growling fit over the extra cost involved in purchasing his last legislature, owing to the fact that some of its members had been elected upon a fusion of radical reform and honest workingmen's tickets, is suddenly and mysteriously impressed with the recollection that this is Christmas Eve. "Why, bless my soul, so it is," he cries, springing up from his littered rosewood desk like a boy. "Here, you general superintendent out there in the office," sings he, cheerily, "send someone down to Washington Market this instant. to find out whether or not any of those luscious anatomical western turkeys that I saw in the barrels this morning are left yet. If the commercial hotels downtown haven't taken them all, buy every remaining barrel at once. Not a man nor boy in this company's service shall go home tonight without his Christmas dinner in his hand. Lively, now, Mr. Jones. And just oblige me by picking out one of the birds for yourself, if you can find one at all less blue than the rest. It's Christmas Eve, sir, and upon my word I'm really sorry our boys have to work tomorrow as usual. Ah! It's hard to be poor, Jones. A Merry Christmas to us all. Here's my carriage come for me. And even in returning to their homes from their daily avocations, on Christmas Eve, how the most grasping, penurious souls of men will soften to the world's unfortunate. Who is this poor old lady, looking as though she might be somebody's grandmother, sitting here by the wayside, shivering, on such an eve as this? No home to go, relations all dead, eaten nothing in 2 days, walked all the way from the Women's Rights Bureau in Boston, dear me. Can there be so much suffering on Christmas Eve? I must do something for her, or my own good dinner tomorrow will be a reproach to me. Here, policeman. Just take this poor old lady to the station house, and give her a good warm home there until morning. There. Cheer up, auntie, you're all right now. This gentleman in the uniform has promised to take care of you. Merry Christmas. Or, when at home, and that extremely bony lad, in the thin summer coat, chatters to you, from the snow on the front stoop, about the courage he has taken from Christmas Eve to ask you for enough to get a meal and a night's lodging, how differently from your ordinary style does a something soft in your breast impel you to treat him. No work to be obtained, you say, in a light tone, to cheer him up. Of course there's none here, my young friend. All the work here at the East is for foreigners, in order that they may be used at election time. As for you, an American boy, why don't you go to to the West? Go West, young man. Buy a good, stout farming outfit, 2 or 3 serviceable horses, or mules, a portable house made in sections, a few cattle, a case of fever medicine, and then go out to the far west upon government land. You'd better go to one of the hotels for tonight, and then purchase Mr. Greeley's What I Know About Farming and start as soon as the snow permits in the morning. Here are 10 cents for you. Merry Christmas. Thus to honor the natal festival of Him, the unselfish incarnate, the divinely incited, who said unto the lip server, Sell all that thou hast, and give it to the poor, and follow me, and from whom the lip server, having great possessions, went away exceeding sorrowful. 3 men are to meet at dinner in the Bumsteadian apartments on this Christmas Eve. How has each one passed the day? Montgomery Pendragon, in his room in Gospelers Gulch, reads Southern tragedies in an old copy of the New Orleans Picayune, until 2 o'clock, when he hastily tears up all his soiled paper collars, packs a few things into a traveling satchel, and, with the latter slung over his shoulder, and a Kes Indian club in his right hand, is met in the hall by his tutor, the Gospeller. "What are you doing with that club, Mr. Montgomery?" asks the Reverend Octavius, hastily stepping back into a corner. "I've bought it to exercise with in the open air," answers the young Southerner, playfully denting the wall just over his tutor's head with it. "After this dinner with Mr. Drood, at Bumstead's, I reckon I shall start on a walking match, and I've procured the club for exercise as I go." Thus he twirls it high in the air, grazes Mr. Simpson's nearer ear, hits his own head accidentally, and breaks the glass in the hat stand. I see," says the Gospeller, rather hurriedly. "Perhaps you had better be entirely alone, and in the open country, when you take that exercise." Rubbing his skull quite dismally, the prospective pedestrian goes straightway to the porch of the almshouse, and there waits until his sister comes down in her bonnet and joins him. "Magnolia," he remarks, hastening to be the first to speak, in order to have any conversational chance at all with her, "it is not the least mysterious part of this mystery of ours, that keeps us all out of doors so much in the unseasonable winter month of December. 1. And now I am peculiarly a meteorological martyr in feeling obliged to go walking for 2 whole freezing weeks, or until the holidays and this marriage business, are over. I didn't tell Mr. Simpson, but my real purpose, I reckon, in having this club, is to save myself, by violent exercise with it, from perishing of cold." "Must you do this, Montgomery?" asks his colloquial sister, thoughtfully. "Perhaps if I were to talk long enough with you, you'd literally exhaust me into not going." "Certainly you would," he returns, confidently. "First, my head would ache from the constant noise, then it would spin, then I should grow faint and hear you less distinctly, then your voice, although you were talking on the same as ever, would sound like a mere steady hum to me, then I should become unconscious, and be carried home, with you still whispering in my ear. But do not talk, Magnolia, for I must do the walking match. The prejudice here against my southern birth makes me a damper upon the festivities of others at this general season of forgiveness to all mankind, and I can't stand the sight of that Drood and Miss Potts together. I'd better stay away until they have gone." He pauses a moment, and adds, "I wish I were not going to this dinner, or that I were not carrying this club there." He shakes her hand and his own head, glances up at the storm clouds now gathering in the sky, goes onward to Mr. Bumstead's boarding house, halts at the door a moment to moisten his right hand and balance the Indian club in it, and then enters. Edwin Drood's Day Before Merry Christmas is equally hilarious. Now that the flower pot is no longer on his mind, the proneness of the masculine nature to court misfortune causes him to think seriously of Miss Pendragon, and wonder whether she would make a wife to ruin a man. It will be rather awkward, he thinks, to be in Bumsteadville for a week or two after the Macassar young ladies shall have heard of his matrimonial disengagement, as they will all be sure to sit symmetrically at every front window in the almshouse whenever he tries to go by, and he resolves to escape the danger by starting for Egypt, Illinois, immediately after he has seen Mr. Dibble and explained the situation to him. Finding that his watch has run down, he steps into a jeweler's to have it wound, and is at once subjected to insinuating overtures by the man of genius. What does he think of this ring, which is exactly the thing for some particular occasions in life? It is made of the metal for which nearly all young couples marry nowadays, is as endless as their disagreements, and, by the new process, can be stretched to fit the second wife's hand, also. Or look at this pearl set. Very chaste, really soothing, intended as a present from a husband after first quarrel. These cameo earrings were never known to fail. Judiciously presented, in a velvet case, they may be depended upon to at once divert a young wife from returning to her mother, as she has threatened. Mr. Drood cares for no more jewelry than his watch, chain and seal ring. To be sure, when Mr. Bumstead was in yesterday for the regular daily new crystal in his own watch, how does he break so many? He said that his beloved nephews wore only watches and rings, or he would buy paste breastpins for them. Your aroid is now wound up, Mr. Drood, and set at 20 minutes past 2. Dear old Jack, thinks Edwin to himself, pocketing his watch as he walks away. He thinks just twice as much of me as anyone else in the world, and I should feel doubly grateful. As dusk draws on, the young fellow, returning from a long walk, espies an aged Irish lady leaning against a tree on the edge of the turnpike, with a pipe upside down in her mouth, and her bonnet on wrong side afore. Are you sick? He asks kindly. Devil sick, gentleman, is the answer, with a slight catch of the voice. Bless the two of yez. Edwin Drood can scarcely avoid a start, as he thinks to himself, good heaven! How much like Jack! Do you eat cloves, madam? He asks, respectfully. Cloves is it, honey? Thin, I do that, when I'm expectin' company. Oh dether no dether, but I've come here the day from New York for nothing. Sure fat's the names of you two darlints. Edwin, he answers, in some wonder, as he hands her a currency stamp, which, on account of the large hole worn in it, he has been repeatedly unable to pass himself. Eddie, is it? Archone, Macri, exclaims the venerable woman, hanging desolately around the tree by her arms while her bonnet falls over her left ear. I've heard that name threatened. Akushla Wirasthu. Believing that the matron will be less agitated if left alone, and, probably, able to get a little roadside sleep, Edwin Drood passes onward in deep thought. The boarding house is reached, and he enters. J. Bumstead's day of the dinner is also marked by exhilarating experiences. With one coat tail unwittingly tucked far up his back, so that it seems to be amputated, and his alpaca umbrella under his arm, he enters a grocery store of the village, and abstractedly asks how strawberries are selling today. Upon being reminded that fresh fruit is very scarce in late December, he changes his purpose, and orders 2 bottles of bourbon flavoring extract sent to his address. And now he wishes to know what they are charging for sponges. They tell him that he must seek those articles at the druggist's, and he compromises by requesting that 4 lemons be forwarded to his residence. Have they any good Canton flannel, suitable for a person of medium complexion? No. Very well, then, send half a pound of cloves to his house before night. There are ritualistic services at St. Cow's, and he renders the organ accompaniments with such unusual freedom from reminiscences of the Bacchanalian repertory, that the gospeller is impelled to compliment him as they leave the cathedral. You're in fine tone today, Bumstead. Not quite so much volume to your playing as sometimes, but still the tune could be recognized. That, sir, answers the organist, explainingly, was because I held my right wrist firmly with my left hand, and played mostly with only one finger. The method, I find, secures steadiness of touch and precision in hitting the right key. I should think it would, Mr. Bumstead. You seem to be more free than ordinarily from your occasional indisposition. I am less nervous, Mr. Simpson, is the reply. I've made up my mind to swear off, Sir. I'll tell you what I'll do, Simpson continues the ritualistic organist, with sudden confidential affability. I'll make an agreement with you, that whichever of us catches the other slipping up first in the new year, shall be entitled to call for whatever he wants. Bless me! I don't understand, ejaculates the gospeller. No matter, sir. No matter, retorts the mystic of the organ loft, abruptly returning to his original gloom. My company awaits me, and I must go. Excuse me, cries the gospeller, turning back a moment, but what's the matter with your coat? The other discovers the condition of his tucked-up coat-tail with some fierceness of aspect, but immediately explains that it must have been caused by his sitting upon a folding chair just before leaving home. So, humming a savage tune in make-believe of no embarrassment at all in regard to his recently disordered garment, Mr. Bumstead reaches his boarding house. At the door he waits long enough to examine his umbrella, with scowling scrutiny, in every rib, and then he enters. Behind the red window curtain of the room of the dinner party shines the light all night, while before it a wailing December gale rises higher and higher. Through leafless branches, under eaves and against chimneys, the savage wings of the storm are beaten, its long fingers caught, and its giant shoulder heaved. Still, while nothing else seems steady, that light behind the red curtain burns unextinguished, the reason being that the window is closed and the wind cannot get at it. At morning comes a hush on nature. The sun arises with that innocent expression of countenance which causes some persons to fancy that it resembles Mr. Greeley after shaving, and there is an evident desire on the part of the wind to pretend that it has not been up all night. Fallen chimneys, however, expose the airy fraud, and the clock blown completely out of St. Cow's steeple reveals what a high time there has been. Christmas morning though it is, Mr. McLaughlin is summoned from his family circle of pigs, to mount the ritualistic church and see what can be done, and while a small throng of early idlers are staring up at him from Gospeler's Gulch, Mr. Bumstead, with his coat on in the wrong way, and a wet towel on his head, comes tearing in amongst them like a Congreve rocket. "Where's them nephews? Where's Montgomery's? Where's that umbrella? Howls Mr. Bumstead, catching the first man he sees by the throat, and driving his hat over his eyes. What's the matter, for goodness sake, calls the gospeller from the window of his house. Mr. Pendragon has gone away on a walking match. Is not Mr. Drood at home with you? Narabit Viet pants the organist, releasing his man's throat, but still leaning with heavy affection upon him. Nephews went out with frelle walk, mere night, and ve nor seen since. There is no more looking up at St. Cow's steeple with a McLaughlin on it now. All eyes fix upon the agitated Mr. Bumstead, as he wildly attempts to step over the tall paling of the Gospeler's fence at a stride, and goes crashing headlong through it instead. To be continued. 1. In the original English story there is, considering the bitter time of year given, a truly extraordinary amount of solitary sauntering, social strolling, confidential confabulating, evening rambling, and general lingering, in the open air. To adapt this novel peculiarity to American practice, without some little violation of probability, is what the present conscientious adapter finds almost the artistic requirement of his task. All hail! The most fearful weapon yet brought into the field of war, if we are to believe newspaper correspondents, is the revolving grape shotgun known as the hail thrower, a piece of ordnance said to be in use by the French and Prussian armies, alike. If half we hear about the hail thrower be true, 'twere better for all concerned to keep out of hail of it. Many a hail fellow well met by that fearful hailstorm must go to grass ere the red glare of the war has passed away. Where do you hail from, would be a bootless question to put when the hail thrower begins to administer throws to the breaking ranks. Worse than that, it would probably be a headless question. The perfect cure. A newspaper paragraph states that, in Minnesota, they have a very summary way of restoring the consciousness of pigs that have been smitten by the summary rays of the sun. They simply open piggy's head with a pickaxe or other handy instrument, introduce a handful or two of salt, close up the head again, and piggy is all right. But this, after all, is simply a new application of the old practice of curing pork with salt. Con by a son of a gun. Why are the new breech loaders supplied with needles? To keep their breeches in repair, of course. Con by a carpet shaker. Why is a large carpet like the late rebellion? Because it took such a lot of tacks to put it down. Advice to picnic parties. This culminating period of the summer season, it is natural that the civic mind should turn itself to the contemplation of sweet rural things, including shady groves, lunch baskets, wild flowers, sandwiches, bird songs, and bottled lager beer. The skies are at their bluest, now, the woods and fields are at their greenest, flowers are blooming their yellowest, and purplest, and scarletest. All nature is smiling, in fact, with one large, comprehensive smile, exactly like a first-class prang chromo with a fresh coat of varnish upon it. Things being thus, what can be more charming than a rural excursion to some tangled thicket, the very brambles, and poison ivy, and possible copperhead snakes, of which are points of unspeakable value to a picnic party, because they are sensational, and one cannot have them in the city without rushing into fabulous extra expense. It is good, then, that neighbors should club together for the festive purposes of the picnic, and a few words of advice regarding the arrangement of such parties may be seasonable. If your excursion includes a steamboat trip, always select a boat that is likely to be crowded to its utmost capacity, more especially one of which a majority of the passengers are babies in arms. There will probably be some roughs on board, who will be certain to get up a row, in which case you can make the babies in arms very effective as buffers for warding off blows, while the crowd will save you from being knocked down. Should there be a bar on board the steamer, it will be the duty of the gentlemen of the party to keep serving the ladies with cool beverages from it at brief intervals during the trip. This will promote cheerfulness, and, at the same time, save for picnic duty proper the contents of the stone jars that are slumbering sweetly among the pork pies and apple dumplings by which the lunch baskets are occupied. Never take more than one knife and fork with you to a picnic, no matter how large the party may be. The probability is that you may be attacked by a gang of rowdies, and it is no part of your business to furnish them with weapons. Avoid taking up your ground near a swamp or stagnant water of any kind. This is not so much on account of mosquitoes as because of the small saurian reptiles that abound in such places. If your party is a large one, there will certainly be one lady in it, at least, who has had a lizard in her stomach for several years, and the struggles of the confined reptile to join its congeners in the swamp might induce convulsions, and so mar the hilarity of the party. To provide against an attack by the city brigands who are always prowling in the vicinity of picnic parties, it will be judicious to attend to the following rules: select all the fat women of the party, and seat them in a ring outside the rest of the picnickers, and with their faces toward the center of the circle. In the event of a discharge of missiles, this will be found a very effective cordon, quite as effective, in fact, as the feather beds used in the making up of barricades. Let the babies of the party be so distributed that each, or as many as possible of the gentlemen present, can have one at hand to snatch up and use for offender should an attack at close quarters be made. If any dark, designful strangers should intrude themselves upon the party, unbidden, the gentlemen present should by no means exhibit the slightest disposition to resent the intrusion, or to show fight, as the strangers are sure to be professional thieves, and, as such, ready to commit murder, if necessary. Treat the strangers with every consideration possible under the circumstances. Should there be no champagne, apologize for the absence of it, and offer the next best vintage you happen to have. Of course, having lunched, the strangers will be eager to acquire possession of all valuables belonging to the party. The gentlemen, therefore, will make a point of promptly handing over to them their own watches and jewelry, as well as those of their lady friends. Having arrived home, we assume the possibility of this, refrain, carefully, from communicating with the police on the subject of the events of the day. The publicity that would follow would render you an object of derision, and no possible good could result to you from disclosure of the facts. But you should at once make up your mind never to participate in another picnic. A chance for our organ grinders. The famous mitrailleau, or grape thrower, with which Louis Napoleon has already commenced to astonish the Prussians, suggests congenial work for the numerous performers on the barrel organ with which our large cities are at all times infested. It is worked with a crank, exactly after the manner of the too familiar street instrument, and might easily be fitted with a musical cylinder arranged for the performance of the most inspiriting and patriotic French airs. Should Italy, at present neutral, take side with France hereafter, she should at once withdraw her wandering minstrels from all parts of the world, and set them to work on the double attachment engine of Ln. Nothing could be more appropriate for working the mitrailleau than a corps of barrel organ grinders from the land of the grape. The origin of Punchinello. Mr. Punchinello, though aware that you belong to Company G and must not be bothered, I wish to ask whether you are descended from the famous chicken dealer of Sorrento, who sold fowls in Naples, and was well known in that fun-loving city for the humor of his speech and the oddity of his form. He was called Punchinello, I believe, the name being the same as that of his wares. If not to this celebrated wag, perhaps you trace your origin to Mr. Puccio di Anello, who so delighted a company of actors at Assyria, with his jokes and jibes, that they invited him to join them, and soon discovered that they had found a star. If neither of these classical wags was your ancestor, may I ask, who the deuce did you come from? Yours, truly, Curioso. Recipe to be tested. We see that they have been firing cannon in the fields near Paris, to bring on a rain. If there is any virtue in this recipe, they are likely to get some moist weather to the northeastward of Paris, to say the least. The firing in that quarter may even lead to a rain in Paris such as France has not lately seen. We would not go so far as to predict anything of this sort. Oh, no, for we are aware that the moment we should do so, Napoleon would lick the Prussians on purpose to show the world that we didn't hit it that time. The watering places. Punchinello's vacations. When one wants to see the great people who are to be seen nowhere else, one goes to the celebrated White Sulphur Springs of Virginia, and, very correctly supposing that there might be persons there who would like to see him, Mr. Punchinello took a trip to the aforesaid springs. He found it charming there. There was such a chance to study character. From the parlors where Chief Justice Chase and General Lee were hobnobbing over apple toddies and peach and honey to the cabins where the wards of the nation were luxuriating in picturesque ease beneath the shade of their newly fledged angel of liberty, everything was instructive to the well-balanced mind. Here, too, in these fertile regions, were to be seen those exquisite floral creations known as mint juleps, the absence of which in our northern agricultural exhibitions can never be sufficiently deplored. Witness the beauty of the design and the ingenious delicacy of the execution of one of the humblest of the species. From experience in the matter, Mr. P is prepared to say that not only as an exponent of the beauties of nature, but as a drink, a mint julep is far superior to the water which gives Thin Resort its celebrity. Why people persist in drinking that vilest of all water which is found at the fashionable springs, Mr. P cannot divine. If it is medicine you want, you can get your drugs at any apothecary's, and he will mix them in water for you for a very small sum extra. And the saving in expense of travel, board and extras, will be enormous. But in spite of this fact, there were plenty of distinguished-looking people at the White Sulphur. Mr. P didn't know them all, but he had no doubt that one of them was General Lee, one Phil Sheridan, another Professor Maury, another Goldwin Smith, and others Governor Wise, Henry Ward Beecher, Wade Hampton, Wendell Phillips, Raphael Semmes, and Lucretia Mott. One man, an incognito, excited Mr. P.'s curiosity. This personage was generally found in the society of Lee, Johnston, Pope, Hampton, Greeley, and those other fellows who did so much to injure the Union cause during the war. One day Mr. P accosted him. He was an oddity, and perhaps it would be a good idea to put his picture in the paper. "Sir," said Mr. P, with that delicate consideration for which he is so noted, "why do you pull your hat down over your eyes, and what is your object in thus concealing your identity? Come, sir. Let us know what it all means." The incognito glanced at Mr. P with the corner of his eye, and perceiving that he was in citizen's dress, pulled his hat still further over his face. "My business," said he, "is my own, but since the subject has been broached, I may as well let you know what it is." "You know me, then," said Mr. P. "I do," replied the other, and proceeding with his recital, he said, "You may have heard that a number of Negro squatters were lately ejected from a private estate in this state, after they had made the grounds to blossom like the rose, and to bring forth like the herring." "Yes, I heard that," said Mr. P. "Well," said the other, "I happened to have some land nearby, and I invited those Negroes to come and squat on my premises, intending to turn them off about blossoming time." Said Mr. P. "Certainly, certainly," said the other, "and I am just waiting about here until they put in a wheat crop on part of the land. I can then sell that portion, right away." "Well, Mr. Ben Butler," said Mr. P., "all that is easily understood, now that I know who you are, but tell me this, why are you so careful to cover your face when in the company of civilians or ladies, and yet go about so freely among these ex-Confederate officers?" "Oh," said the other, "you see I don't want to be known down here, and some of the women or old men might remember my face." "There's no danger of any of the soldiers recognizing me, you know." "Oh, no," cried Mr. P. "None in the world, sir. And besides," said the modest butler, "it's too late now for me to be spooning around among the women." "That's so," said Mr. P. "Goodbye, Benjamin. Any news from Dominica?" "None at all," said the other, "and I don't care if there never is. I am opposed to that annexation scheme now." "Sold your claims," said Mr. P. The incognito winked and departed. That evening at supper Mr. P. remarked that his biscuits were rather hard, and he blandly requested a waiter to take one of them outside and crack it. The elder Peyton, who runs the hotel, overheard Mr. P.'s remark, and stepping up to him, said, "Sir, you should not be so particular about your food. What you pay me, while you stay at my place, is my charge for the water you drink. The food and lodging I throw in, gratis." Mr. P arose. "Mr. Peyton," said he, "when I was quite a little boy, my father, making the tour of America, brought me here, and I distinctly remember your making that remark to him. Since then many of my friends have visited the White Sulphur, and you invariably made the same remark to them. Is there no way to escape the venerable joke?" The gentle Peyton made no answer, but walked away, and after supper, one of the boarders took Mr. P aside and urged him to excuse their host, as he was obliged to make the joke in question to every guest. The obligation was in his lease. So the matter blew over. Reflecting, however, that if he had to pay so much for the water, that he had better drink a little, Mr. P went down to the spring to see what could be done. On the way, he met Uncle Aaron, formerly one of Washington's body servants. The venerable patriarch touched his hat, and Mr. P, hoping from such great age to gain a little wisdom, propounded the following questions: "Uncle, is this water good for the bile?" "Oh, law, no, sir. That dar water you'd just spile anything you biled in it. Make it taste of rotten eggs, for all the world, sir." "Deed it would. But what I want to know," said Mr. P, "is why the people drink it." "Law bless you, sir. Dis here chilly kin tell you that. Ye see de gem men from de north dey drinks it becase they eat so much cold wheat bread. Allers makes em sick, sir." "And why do the southerners drink it?" "Wall, sir, you see dey eats so much hot wheat bread, and it don't agree wid em, no how." "But how about the colored people?" "I have seen them drinking it frequently," said Mr. P. "Oh, law, sir, how you is asking questions. Don't you know that the colored folks have to drink it becase dey don't get no wheat bread at all?" Mr. P heard no better philosophy than this on the subject while he remained at the White Sulphur. When he left, he brought a couple of gallons of the water with him, and intends keeping it in the water cooler in his office, for loungers. The Poems of the Cradle. Canto 3. Jack and Gill went up the bill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Gill came tumbling after. How many persons there are who read those lines without giving one moment's thought to their hidden beauty. Love, obedience, and devotion unto death are here portrayed, and yet people will repeat the lines of the melancholy muse with a smile on their faces, and even teach it to their young children as a sort of joyful lyric. My own infant mind was tampered with in the same manner, and after I had committed the poem to memory I was proudly called up by my fond and doting parents to display my infantile acquirements before admiring visitors. The result might have been foreknown. All my infancy and youth passed away, and I never once perceived the hidden worth of these lines till I had tumbled down a hill myself, cracked my crown, and was laid up with it a week or more. During that time I had leisure to muse on the fate of poor Jack. When my mind expanded so as to take in all the sublimity of his devotion and death, my heart was filled with admiration and astonishment, and I resolved I would make one effort to rescue the memory of poor Jack and loving Gil from the oblivion it seemed to be falling into, in the greater admiration people gave to the musical style of the writer. Jack and Gil went up the hill. Here you see the obedient, loving, long-suffering, put-upon drudge of his brothers and sisters. We will take the liberty of giving him a few of each, as we are a little more generous than the author, who was compelled, not the author, but Jack, to do all the chores, fetch and carry, tend and wait, bear the heat and burden of the day, and be the Jack for all of them. He was not dignified by the respectable title of John, or Jonathan, but was poor simple Jack. Virtue will always be rewarded, however, and even freckle-faced, red-headed Jack had one friend, blue-eyed, tender-hearted Gil, who, seeing the unhesitating obedience he rendered to all, forthwith concluded that one so lone and sad could appreciate true friendship and understand the motives that prompted her to give, unsolicited, her gushing love. So, when the good Jack started up the hill, loving Gil generously offered to accompany him. Probably the other children looked out of the windows after them, and laughed, and jeered, and wondered whither they were going, but, observing the pail, concluded they were going to fetch a pail of water, which they were willing Jack should do, as it would save them the possibility of being ordered to do it. Not that there was a probability of such a command being given, but there was a slight danger that the thing might happen in case Jack was occupied otherwise when the water was needed. But now that he had gone for it, they were all right, and rejoiced exceedingly thereat. Meanwhile the two little sympathizing companions toiled up the steep hill, drinking in with every inhalation of the balmy air copious draughts of the new-found elixir of life. Soft eyes looked love to eyes that spake again, too, and their hearts melted beneath each tender glance. The little chubby hands that grasped the handle of the pail timidly crept closer together, and by the time they had reached the rugged top, it needed but one warm embrace to mingle the two souls into one, henceforth forever. This was done. Tremblingly they drew back, blushing, casting modest glances at each other, and then, to aid them in recovering from their confusion, turned their attention to the water, which reflected back two happy, smiling faces. Filling the pail with the dimpled liquid mirror, they turned their steps homeward. Light at heart and intoxicated with bliss, poor Jack, ever unfortunate, dashed his foot against a stone, and thus it was that Jack fell down and broke his crown. Oh, what a fall was there, my countrywomen! Fearful were the shrieks that rent the mountain air as he rolled down the hillside. The pail they had carried so carefully was overturned and rent asunder, and the trembling water spilled upon the smiling hillside, fit emblem of their vanishing hopes. Down went the roly-poly boy, like a dumpling down a cellar door, crashing his head against the cruel rocks that stood in stony-heartedness in his way, and dashing his brains out against their hard sides. His loving companion, eyes and mouth dilated with horror, stood still and rigid, gazing upon the fearful descent, and its tragic ending, then throwing her arms aloft, and giving a fearful shriek of agony that thrilled with horror the hearts of the hearers, if there were any, cast herself down in exact imitation of the fall of her hero, rolled over and over as he did, and ended by mingling her blood with his upon the same stones. His crown was broken diagonally, hers slantindicularly, that was the only difference. Her suicidal act is commemorated in the line, and Gil came tumbling after. The catastrophe was witnessed by the assembled family, who hastened to the bleeding victims of parental injustice, and endeavored to do all that was possible to restore life to the mangled forms of the two who loved when living, and in death were not divided. But all in vain. They were dead, and not till then did the family appreciate the beautiful, self-denying, heroic disposition of the little martyr, Jack. The two innocent forms were buried side by side, and the whole country round mourned the fate of the infant lovers. Painters preserved their pictures on canvas, and poets sung them at eventide. The beauties of their life, and their tragic death, were given by the poet laureate of the day in the words I have just transcribed, and such an impression did these make on the minds of the inhabitants, that the whole population took them to heart, and, with tears in their eyes, taught them to their children, even unto the third and fourth generations. Alas! It was reserved for our day and generation to gabble them over unthinking, carelessly unmindful of the fearful fate the words describe. Repentant ones, drop to their memory a tear, even now. It is not too late. 2. Original, by some other fellow. What we may expect in our army of the future. None but the brave etc. Letter from a croaker. Mr. Punchinello, you have not, I believe, informed your readers, one of whom I have the honor to be, as to whether you have yet united yourself to any designing female. As this is a matter peculiarly interesting to many of your readers, all of whom, I have not the least doubt, are interested in your welfare, I would advise some statement on your part, respecting it. I trust, my dear sir, that, if you are as yet free, you will take the well-intended advice of a sufferer, and steer entirely clear of the shoals and quicksands peculiar to the life of a married man, by never embarking in the matrimonial ship. Do not misunderstand me. I lived happily, very happily, with my sainted Belinda. It must be confessed that she had a striking partiality for sardines, which caused considerable of a decrease in the profits of my wholesale and retail grocery establishment. I cherish no resentment on that account, but, as you probably well know, one of the discomforts of matrimonial existence is children. Sir, I have a daughter, who is considered passably good-looking by certain appreciative individuals. Since the unfortunate demise of my lamented wife, the profits of the mercantile establishment of which I am proprietor have largely increased, and as Rebecca is my only child, there is a considerable prospect of her bringing to the man who espouses her, a comfortable dowry, and probably a share in my business. I keep no manservant, and after my daughter retires, generally at the witching hour of 2 in the morning, I am obliged to hobble downstairs, extinguish the lights, cover the fire, lock up the house, and ascertain whether it is perfectly fire and burglar-proof for the time being. Were this, sir, the only annoyance to which I am subjected, my wrath would probably expend itself in a little growling, but hardly have I reposed myself upon my couch, ere my ear catches an infernal tooting and twanging and whispering, and a broken-winded German band, engaged by an admirer of my Rebecca, strikes up some outrageous potpourri, or something of that sort, and sleep, disgusted, flees my pillow. Last night, or rather this morning, they came again. Their discordant symphonies roused me to desperation. I seized a bucket of slops, and, opening the window, dashed the contents in the direction of the music, the full force of the deluge striking a fat, froggy-looking little Dutchman, who was puffing and blowing at a bassoon infinitely larger than himself. He was just launching out into a prodigious strain, but it expired while yet in the bloom of youth. He remained for a short time in the famous posture of the Colossus of Rhodes, vainly endeavoring to shake off the cigar stumps and other little etceteras which were clinging to him like cerements, uttering the while unintelligible oaths. Then he struck for his Damascene Plassans uxor at as rapid a rate as his little dumpy legs could carry him. If they come tonight, if they dare to come, I will give them a dose which they will remember. My dear sir, what can I do to rid myself of these annoyances? The girl has been to boarding school, and so can't be sent there again. She has no friends or relations whom it would be advisable to put her off upon. Assist me then, in this, the hour of my tribulation, and you, my dear Mr. Punchinello, will merit the lasting gratitude of an unhappy father. The best thing an unhappy father can do, under the circumstances, is to learn to play upon the bass horn, and then, should the brazen serenaders again make their appearance, he can give them blow for blow. Ed Punchinello. That iron dog. The latest bit of intelligence given by the police regarding the dog so much spoken of in connection with the 23rd Street murder, is that it is not, as at first stated, the kind of instrument used by shipwrights. In other words, the police have discovered that it is not a water dog, though, up to the present date, they have not been able to prove it a bloodhound. Severe penalty. A newspaper gravely informs us that the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania has refused the writ of error in the case of Dr. Shoup, convicted of the murder of Mr. Steineck, and will be hanged. Can nothing be done to save this court? One may say they had no business to refuse the writ. But, at any rate, we are of opinion that the punishment is excessive. Wonderful tour de force, performed on the beach at Long Beach by Professor James Fisk, Jr., the great American athlete. Hiram Green on Jersey mosquitoes. A hard-fought battle. Mosquitoes have no sting that Jersey lightning cannot cure. New Jersey is noted among her sister countries, as being responsible for two of the most destructive things ever got up. The first is of the animal kingdom, and varying in size from a 3-year-old snap-in turtle to a load of hay. It has a bayonet its nose, in which is a squirt gun charged with poison. It has no hesitation whatsoever of shoving its pitchfork into a human being, and when a fella feels it, it makes him think old Solferino has come for him, and no mistake. The surname of this sleep-destroying animal is mosquito, and they like their meat raw. Misery number 2 is a beverage manufactured from the compound extract of chain lightning on the wing, and ill of vitriol. It is then flavored with erysipelas and 7-year itch, when it is ready to lay out its man. I was on a visit to Jersey a short time ago, and if ever a man was justified in cussing the day he ever set foot onto the classic red shores of New Jersey, which soil, by the way, is so greasy that all the red-headed New Jersey gals use it for hair ill, while for greasing a pancake griddle it can't be beat, it was the undersinned. The first night I was in that furrin clime, after hagging my clothes over a chair, and dropping my false teeth in a tumbler of water, I retired in a sober and moral condition. Balmy sleep, sweet natus hair restorer, which sentiment I quote from Mr. Dickens, who, I understand from the Boston clergy, is now sizzling, hadn't he yet folded me in her embrace. Strains of melody, surpassing by several lengths the mellifluous discordant notes of the one-armed hand organist's most sublimest seem funny, surcharged the atmosphere. Ever and anon the red-hot breezes kissed the honest old man's innocent cheek, and slobbered great capsules of odoriferous moisture, which ran in little silvery streams from his reclining form. Yes, verily, great pearls hung pendant from his nasal protuberance. In other words, I hadn't gone to sleep, but lay there sweating like an ice wagon, while the well-known battle song of famished mosquitoes fell onto my ear. The music ceased, and a regiment of Jersey mosquitoes, all armed to the teeth and wearing cowhide boots, marched single file into my open window. The colonel, a grey-headed old war-worn veterinary, alighted from his hose, and tied the animal to the bedpost. The commander then mounted on top of the washstand, and helping himself to a chaw of tobacco out of my box, which lay aside him, the old scoundrel commenced firing his tobacco juice in my new white hat. "See here, Colonel," said I, somewhat riled at seeing him make a spittoon of my best stovepipe. "If it's all the same to you, s'pose then you eject your vile secretion out of the window." "Cork up, old man," said the impudent rascal, "or I'll spit on ye and drown you." All about the room the privates were sacrilegiously misusing my property. One red-headed old mosquito, who was so full of somebody's blood he couldn't hardly waddle, was seated in the rocking chair, and with my spectacles on his nose, was reading a copy of Punchinello, and laughing as if he'd bust. Another chap had got my jackknife, and was amusing hisself by slashing holes in my blue cotton umbrella, which 2 other mosquitoes had shoved up, and was a-setting under, engaged in tying my pantaloon legs into hard knots. Another scalawag had jammed my coat part way into my boots, and was pouring water into em out from the wash pitcher, and I am sorry to say it, every darned mosquito was up to some mean trick, which would put to blush even a member of the New Jersey legislature. Suddenly the Colonel hollered, "To arms!" And every mosquito fell into line about my bedside. "Charge, begonnets," said the Colonel. At which the whole lot went for me. Their pisoned weapons entered my flesh. They charged onto my bald head, rammed their bayonets into my arms, my back, my side, and there wasn't a place bigger en a cent, which they didn't fill with pison. There I lay, groanin' for mercy. But Jersey mosquitoes, not dealing in that article, don't know what it is. Like the new collector Murphy, when chopping off the heads of Fenton office holders, mercy hain't he there lay, about these times. At this juncture a company of dragoons clinching their pesky bills into me, dragged me off onto the floor. And then such a horrible laugh they would give, when I would strike for them and miss hitting. There I lay on the floor, puffin' and blowin' like a steaming een, while the whole army was dancin' a war dance around my prostrate figure, and the old Colonel was cuttin' down a double shuffle on the washstand, which made the crockery rattle. I kicked at 'em as they would charge on my feet and limbs. I grabbed at 'em, as they charged on my face, arms, and shoulders. Slap. Bang. Kick. Swear. I couldn't stand it much longer. As a big corpulent fella, who, I should judge, was gettin' ready to join a fat man's club, went over me, I catched him by the heel. I hung on to him with my best hold. He dragged me all over the floor. My head struck the bedposts, and other furniture. 3 other mosquitoes got straddle of me, and as if I was a hose, spurred me up purty lively. All of a sudden the mosquito I was haggin' to give a yank, and drew out his foot, left his butte in my hand. Brandishin' the butte about my head, I cleared at lot of mosquitoes. Jumpin' to my feet I made things fly for 'em I knew it, pillin' up the killed and wounded in a promiscuous heap. Seeing the Colonel settin' up there enjoyin' the fun, I let fly the butte at him. Smash! Went the looking glass. The venerable commanding mosquito had dodged, and was settin' on the bureau, with his thumb on his nose, wrigglin' his fingers at me in a very ungentlemanly manner. There I was again unarmed, dancin' about, swelled up like a baseball player on match day. "Bloody go," was the cry. I tried to make a masked battery with a pillar. It was no protection against Jersey mosquitoes. As Rachel mourned for her stepmother, I sighed for me home. "Why, oh why," I cried, "did I leave old Skeensborough? A widow wearing a borrowed suit of mourning, 11 children crying because the governor had been chawed up by mosquitoes crowded into my thoughts. The army was getting ready to charge on to me again, and avenge their fallen comrades. Suddenly a bright thought struck me. I seized a sheet and waved it for a flag of truce. "The order wasn't given. Colonel," said I, "before we continue this fight, let's take a drink all around, and I'll stand treat." "Done," said he, "trot out your benzine." I opened the bureau drawer, and took out a black bottle. I pulled the cork and filled all the glasses, then poured a lot into the wash bowl, when I handed the bottle to the Colonel. Make ready. Take aim. Drink. Down went the liquor. I laughed a revengeful laugh, as every condemned mosquito turned up their heels and cried, "Water, send my bones back to China, mother dear, I'm comin', 300,000 strong, we die, by the hand, of Jersey, light, and Jersey lightning, more powerful than the chassepot gun of France or the needle gun of Prussia, had done its work, and the old man was saved to the world." It was 3 days before any clothes would again fit me. I looked more like a big balloon than a human being, I was swelled up so with the pizen. My blessings on the head of the individual who invented Jersey lightning. Nothing else would have saved the late Gusty's valuable life. Ever of thou, Hiram Green, Esquire, late Gusties of the Peace. From our own correspondent. Rumors of war from Europe must always be expected, for how can we get Pacific news by Atlantic telegraph? Where ignorance is bliss etc., first small bather. Wouldn't our mams give US fits if they caught US swimming? Second ditto. I'll bet you're. But neither of the happy little truants knows that a thief is running off with their clothes. Reform in juvenile literature. Since the thrilling moment when Gutenberg made his celebrated discovery, numbers of persons have tried their hands, and undoubtedly their heads also, at books for the young. Hitherto, many of them have evinced a sad lack of judgment in respect of matter. Would you believe it, in this highly moral and virtuous age? They have actually written stories that were not true. They haven't seemed to care a button whether they told the truth or not. Where can they have contracted the deadly heresy that imagination, feeling, and affection are good things, deserving encouragement? Mark the effect of these pernicious teachings. Hundreds and thousands, nay, fellow mortal, millions of children, now walk the earth, believing in fairies, giants, ogres, and such like unreal personages, and yet unable, we blush to say it, to tell why the globe we live on is flattened at the poles. Is it not a serious question whether children who persistently ignore what is true and important, but cherish fondly these abominable fables, may not ultimately be lost? But, thanks to the recent growth of practical sense, or the decline of the inventive faculty, in writers for the young, a better day is dawning, and there is still some hope for the world. Men of sense and morality are coming forward, they dedicate their minds to this service, those practical minds whence will be extracted the only true pabulum for the growing intellect. It is to minds of this stamp, so truly the antipodes of all that is youthful, spontaneous, and childlike, in a word, frivolous, that we must look for those solid works which, in the millennium that is coming, will perfectly supplant what may be termed, without levity, the cock and bull system of juvenile entertainment. Worldly people may consider this stuff graceful and touching, sweet and lovable, but it is nevertheless clearly mischievous, else pious and proper persons wouldn't have said so, time and again. For our part, we may as well confess that our sympathies go out undividedly toward that important class who are averse to nonsense, more particularly book nonsense, which they can't stand, and won't stand, and there's an end of it. There is something exceedingly winning, to us, in that sturdy sense, that thirst for mathematical precision, that impatience of theory, that positive and self-reliant, we don't mind saying, somewhat dogmatical, air, that sternness of feature, thinness of lip, and coldness of eye, which belong to the best examples. We respect even the humbler ones, for they at least hate sentiment, they do not comprehend or approve of humor, and they never relish wit. What does a taste for these qualities indicate, but an idle and frivolous mind, devoted to trifles, and how fatal is such a taste, in the pursuit of wealth and respectability. Fantastic people have much to say of the affections, the graces and amenities of life, soul culture and the like. We cannot too deeply deplore their fatuity, in giving prominence to such abstractions. As for children, the most we can concede is, that they have a natural, though, of course, depraved, taste for stories. Yes, we will say that this fondness is irrepressible. But, what we really must insist on, is, that in gratifying that fondness, you give them true stories. Where is the carefully trained and upright soul that would not reject Jack, the giant killer, or Goody Two Shoes if it could substitute, say, from new and true stories for children, a tale as thrilling as this? When I was a boy, I said to my uncle one day, "How did you get your finger cut off?" And he said, "I was chopping a stick one evening, and the hatchet cut off my finger." Blessings, blessings on the man who thus embalmed this touching incident. Who does not see that the reign of fiction is over? That the parental portion of the public may judge what the future has in store for their little ones, who, we hope, will be men and women far sooner than their ancestors were. We present them with a fragrant nosegay, pshaw, we mean, a shovelful, of samples, commending them, should they wish for more, to the nearest Sabbath school library. Ah, it is a touching thing, to see some great philanthropist come forward, at the call of duty, and his publisher, perhaps also quickened by the hollow sound emitted by his treasure box, and compress himself into the absurdly small compass of a few pages 18 mo, in order to afford himself the exalted pleasure of holding simple and godly converse with children at large. All truth, no fiction. What further guarantee would you have? How replete with useful matter must not a book with that assurance be? Let us read, "The Indians cannot build a ship. They do not know how to get iron from the mines, and they do not know enough. Besides, they do not like to work, and like to fight better than to work. When they want to sail, they burn off a log of wood, and make it hollow by burning and scraping it with sharp stones." Now we ask, does not this satisfy your ideal of food for the youthful mind? Observe that it is simple, direct, graphic, satisfying. It cannot enfeeble the intellect. It will be useful. There is something tangible about it. The child at once perceives that if the Indians knew how to get iron from the mines and knew enough in general, they would build ships, in spite of their distaste for work. There can be no doubt that this is all truth, no fiction, for Indians are sadly in want of ships. They like to sail, for we learn that when they want to sail they are so wild for it, that they even go to the length of burning off a log of wood, and making it hollow by burning and scraping it with sharp stones. We thus perceive the significance of the apothegm: truth is stranger than fiction. The day is not far distant when children will think as much of the new literature as they formerly did of certain worm lozenges, for which they were said to cry. And where everything has been inspired by the love of truth, even the cuts may teach something. If a canoe, contrary to the general impression, is at least as long as a ship, it is very important that children should so understand it, and if a pinfish is really as big as a shark, no mistaken deference to the feelings of the latter should make us hesitate to say so. No child, we are convinced, is too young to get ideas of science. In one of the model books we are pleased to find this great truth distinctly recognized. "Is there anything like a lever about a wheelbarrow?" said his father. "Oh yes, sir," said James. "The axle, and the wheel is the prop, the load is the weight, and the power is your hand." This, we should say, speaks for itself. Nor is a child ever too young to get ideas of thrift. One of our writers for infants observes, after explaining that the Dutch reclaimed the whole of Holland from the sea by means of dikes, they worked hard, saved their money, and so grew rich. Any child can take such hints. Neither is it wholly amiss to demonstrate that a child can't put a clock in his pocket. For it is plain that he would else be trying to do so some time. Now, where in the Arabian Nights do you find anything like this? We answer, triumphantly, nowhere. James said his father, "Do not shut up hot water too tight, and take care when it is over the fire." A lady was boiling coffee one day, and kept the cover on the coffee pot too long. When she took it off, the water turned to steam, and flew up in her face, and took the skin off. Do you know how they make the wheels of a steamboat move? They shut up water tight in a great kettle and heat it. Then they open a hole which has a heavy iron bar in it. The steam lifts it, in trying to get out. That bar moves a lever, and the lever moves the wheels. Machines are wonderful things. This fact the reader must distinctly realize. And doesn't he realize that the days of Jack, the Giant Killer, and Little Red Riding Hood, are about over? We want truth. The only question is, as Festus observed, what is truth? Answers to correspondents. Derek. There is a superstition afloat that, if you see a ladder hoisted against a house, and, instead of passing outside the ladder you pass under it, some accident or affliction will befall you. What about this? Answer: it all depends upon circumstances. If, while passing under the ladder, a hod of bricks should fall through it and strike you on the head, then an accident or affliction shall have befallen you, otherwise not. Nincompoop. I hear a great deal about the log of the Cambria. Can you tell me how it is likely to be disposed of? Answer. It is to be manufactured into snuff boxes for the officers and crew of the Dauntless, as a delicate admission that they are up to snuff and not to be sneezed at. Nick of the Pick. What is the best way of securing oneself from the bodily damages to which all persons who attend picnic parties now seem to be liable? Answer. Don't go to picnic parties. Rough it at home. John Brown. We cannot insert jokes on the number of Smiths in the world, except as advertisements. For lowest rates see terms on the cover. Hercus. We are sorry to say that your remarks on baby farming are not based upon facts. In 9 cases out of 10 it has nothing whatever to do with husbandry. Acorn. As this is the 7th time you have written to us, asking whether corns can be cured by cutting, so it must be the last. The thing palls, and we must now try whether a corn cannot be got rid of by cutting. Horseman. No, we never remember to have met a man who did not know all about a horse. If such a man can be found, his fortune and that of the finder are assured. Seeker. It may be true that man changes once in every 7 years, but that will hardly excuse you from paying your tailor's bill contracted in 1862, on the ground that you are not the same man. Fond mother. None but a brutal bachelor would object to a sweet little baby merely because it was bald-headed. Sempronius. Would you advise me to commit suicide by hanging? Answer. No. If you are really bound to hang, we would advise you to hang about some nice young female person's neck instead of by your own, it's pleasanter. Wax. Yes, the Alaska Seal contracts will undoubtedly include the Great Seal of the United States. Talented author. We do not pay for rejected communications. Many inquirers. We can furnish back numbers to a limited extent, future ones by the cargo, or steamboat. Financial. Wall Street, August 2 ND. Respected Sir, acting upon your suggestion that, despite the repugnance with which the truly artistic mind must ever view it, commerce was a rising institution, and that amongst the thousands of the refined and haughty who read Punchinello with feelings of astonishment and awe, there were some misguided men whose energies had been perverted to the pursuit of filthy lucre. Your contributor yesterday descended into the purlieus of the city in quest of information wherewith to pander to the tastes of the debased few. It would be useless to point out to you that 10 a.m. is not the hour at which it is the custom of YC to tear himself from his luxurious conch. His conception of the exalted has always been associated with late breakfasts. On this memorable occasion, however, duty and a bellboy called him, and at the extraordinary hour to which he has referred he arose and set about his investigations. A party of distinguished and sorrowing friends accompanied him as far as Bangs. The regard which he cherishes for poetry and art had hitherto marked out this pleasant hostelry as the utmost limit of his downtown perambulations. The conversation of his distinguished friends was elevating, the potations in which they drank their good wishes were equally, if not more so. Having deposited $2.35 for safekeeping with a trusted friend, your contributor hailed a Wall Street stage and sped fearlessly to his destination. he has gone through the ordeal safely. Annexed are the result of his labors, in the shape of bulletins which were forwarded to but never acknowledged by a frivolous and unfeeling editor. Wall Street, 10-1/2 The market opened briskly with a tendency towards Delmonico's for early refreshments. Eye-openers in active demand. Brokers have undergone an improvement. 11 On the strength of a rumor that a gold dollar had been seen in an uptown jewelry store, gold declined 1.105. 11.15 In consequence of a report that Colonel J.S. Fisk, Jr., has secured a lease of Plymouth Church, and is already engaged in negotiations with several popular preachers, Aries advanced 0.5%. 11:30 A reaction has commenced in Aries, it being given out that Madame Cathilana had sustained an injury which would necessitate her withdrawal from the Grand Opera House. 12 Just heard some fellow saying, St. Paul preferred. Couldn't catch the rest. It seems important. What did St. Paul prefer? Look it up, and send me word. 12:30 Market excited over a dogfight. How about St. Paul? 1. Police on the scene. Market relapsed. Anything of St. Paul yet? Send me what's his name's commentaries on the scriptures. 1:30 News has been received here that Commodore Vanderbilt was recently seen in the neighborhood of the Croton Reservoir. In view of the anticipated watering process, NYC securities are buoyant. Many, however, would prefer their stock straight. But what was it St. Paul preferred? Do tell. 2 o'clock. Immense excitement has been created on Change by a report that Jay Gould had been observed discussing corn with a prominent government official. A second panic is predicted. 2:15. Later advices confirm the above report. The place of their meeting is said to have been the Erie restaurant. Great anxiety is felt among heavy speculators. 2:00. It is now ascertained that the corn they were discussing was hot corn at lunch. A feeling of greater security prevails. 3 o'clock. Intelligence has just reached here that a dime piece was received in change this morning at a Broadway drinking saloon. Gold has receded 1%, in consequence. Aries quiet, Judge Bernard being out of town. P.S. I haven't found out what St. Paul preferred. What's his name? Don't mention it in his commentaries. 3:30. Sudden demand for New York Amusement Company's stock. Harry Palmer to reopen Tammany with a grand scalping scene in which the Tweed tribe of Indians will appear in Aboriginal costume. Norton, Jeanette, and confreres have kindly consented to perform their original roles of the victims. P.S. Unless I receive some definite information concerning that preference of St. Paul's, I shall feel it incumbent on me to vacate my post of financial editor. 4 o'clock. On receipt of reassuring news from Europe, the market has advanced to Delmonico's, where wet goods are quoted from 10 cents upwards. Champagne brisk, with large sales. Counter sales, sandwiches, etc., extensive. Change in greenbacks greasy. P.S. asked a fellow what St. Paul preferred. He said, St. Paul preferred dividends, you know. Perhaps St. Paul did. A great many stockholders do. But what stock did St. Paul hold? Was it Mariposa or only just taken one? But, as you observe, the weather is confounded hot, so I don't mind if I, Green Bay's. The dog in the manger. Crispin won't do the work himself, and won't let John Chinaman do it. Our portfolio. We have just received from Dick Tinto, our special correspondent at the seat of war, the following metrical production said to have been written by Henry Rochefort in prison, but suppressed in obedience to orders from the Emperor. Punchinello felicitates his readers upon the enterprise which enables him to lay it before them, and flatters himself that the enormous trouble and expense involved in hauling it to this side of the Atlantic will not prevent him from doing it again, if necessary. Or Prince Imperial. Scene. A square fronting the bureau of the Chemin de Fer for Chalons and Metz. Time, midi. The Prince Imperial, en route for the seat of war, is seated upon a milk-white steed. Beneath his left arm he convulsively carries a struggling gamecock, with gigantic gaffs, while his right hand feebly clutches a lance, the napping of whose pennant in his face appears to give him great annoyance and suggests the services of a shoe-fly. Around him throng the ladies of the imperial bedchamber and a cohort of nurses, who cover his legs with kisses, and then dart furtively between his horse's jambies as if to escape the pressure of the crowd. Just beyond these a throng of hucksters, market women, butchers, bakers, etc., vociferously urge him to accept their votive offerings of garden truck, carrots, cabbages, parsnips, haunches of beef, baskets of French rolls and the like, all of which the prince proudly declines, whereupon the vast concourse breaks forth into this wild chant to the air of Bingen on the Rhine. From fountains bright at fair Versailles, and gardens of St. Cloud, with a rooster of the Gallic breed to cock-a-doodle-doo, behold! Our Prince Imperial comes, and in his hands a lance, that erst he'll cross with German spears for glory and for France. They've ta'en his bib and tucker off, and set him on a steed, that he may ride where soldiers ride, and bleed where soldiers bleed. They've cut his curls of jetty hair, and armed him cap-a-pie, until he looks as fair a knight as France could wish to see. Ho! Ladies of the chamber, ho! Nurses, gather near, your charge upon a charger waits to shed the parting tear. Come! Kiss him for his mother, it poor sa majeste, and twine his brow with garlands of the fadeless fleurs de lis. Voila! Who but a few moons gone of babies held the van, now wears his spurs and draws his blade like any other man. Then come, ye courtly dames of France, oh! Take him to your heart, and cheer as only woman can our beardless Bonaparte, for ere another sun shall set, those lips cannot be kissed, and through the grove and in the court their prattling will be missed. The light that from those soft blue eyes now kindly answers thine, will flash where mighty armies tread, upon the banks of Rhine. Yet, hide from him, as best you can, all womanly alarms, nor smile with those who mocking cry, Behold! A babe in arms. A babe indeed. Oh! Slanderous tongues, a prince fresh from his smock, shows manly proof if he can stand the battle shout and shock. And this is one on whom the gods have put their stamp divine, the latest, and perchance the last of Corsica's dread line. Then for the prince imperial citoyens loudly cheer, that his right arm may often bring some German to his bier, that distant Rhineland, trembling, may hear his battle cry, and neutral nations wondering ask, Oh! How is this far high? Our private dispatches from the seat of war in Europe are very confusing. The seat appears to be considerably excited, but the war takes things easily, and seems to have switched off for an indefinite time. It is observed by many that there never was a war precisely like this war, and if it hadn't been for a Dutch female, the Duchess of Flanders, it is fair to suppose that Punchinello wouldn't have been out of pocket so much for cablegrams. The Duchess took it into her head, and her head appears to have had room for it, that her blood relative, Leopold, couldn't get his blood up to accept the Spanish crown. Well, as it turned out, the Duchess was right. Anyhow, she went for a letter by the way, which few Englishmen can pronounce in polite society, and told him that there was **** a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. Leopold said he had heard of that tide, but he didn't believe in always following on it no matter what betided. Then the Duchess got up her Dutch spunk, and spoke out pretty freely, saying as much as if Leopold were a tame sort of poodle, and that she ought to have been born to wear breeches, just to show him how a man should act in a great crisis like the present. Just so, says Leopold, but you see the crisis is what's the matter. If it wasn't for the crisis I'd go in for Isabella's old armchair faster than a hungry pig could root up potatoes. Flanders saw at a glance how the goose hung, and that her bread would all be dough if something wasn't done, and that quickly. She knew Leopold's weakness for schnapps, when he was a boy at Schiedam, and, producing a bottle of the aromatic elixir, with which she had previously armed herself in expectation of his obstinacy, poured out a glassful and requested him to clear his voice with it. 15 minutes after his vocal organs had been thus renewed, Leopold was in a condition to see things in an entirely new light, and hesitated no longer to write the following note to General Prim: Dear Prim, the thing has been satisfactorily explained to me, and I accept. Enclosed find a bottle of schnapps. You never tasted schnapps like this. The Duchess says she don't care a cuss for nap, and that I mustn't neither. Leopold, Sigmaringen Hohenzollern. This is a veritable account of the origin of the European unpleasantness and can be certified to anyone who will call upon us and examine the original dispatches. A. T. Stewart and Company. are offering at the following extremely low prices, notwithstanding the large advance in gold. 2 cases extra quality Japanese poplins in silver gray and ashes of roses, 75 CTS per yard, formerly $1.25 per yard. Real Gaze de Chambre, best quality, 75 CTS per yard, formerly $1.80 per yard. A large assortment of summer silks for young ladies, in stripes and checks, $1 per yard, recently sold at $1.50 and $1.75 per yard. Heavy gross grain black and white silks, $1 per yard. Striped Mongolian silks, for costumes, $1 per yard. 100 pieces in American black silks. Guaranteed for durability, $2 per yard. A complete assortment of trimming silks and satins. Cut either straight or bias, for $1.25 per yard. A choice and selected stock of colored gross grain silks, at $2.60 and $2.75 per yard. Crêpe de chines, 56 inches wide, in every requisite color. Broadway, 4th Avenue, 9th and 10th Streets. Punchinello. The first number of this illustrated humorous and satirical weekly paper was issued under date of the 2nd of April, 1870. The press and the public in every state and territory of the Union endorse it as the best paper of the kind ever published in America. Contents entirely original. Subscription for 1 year, with $2 premium, $4 6 months, without premium. 2.003 months. 1.00 single copies mailed free, for 10 we offer the following elegant premiums of L. Prang and Company's chromos for subscriptions as follows: a copy of paper for 1 year, and The Awakening, a litter of puppies. Half chromo. Size 8-3/8 by 11-1/8, $2 picture, for $4 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $3 chromos, Wild Roses. 12-1/8x9. Dead Game. 11-1/8x8-3/8. Easter Morning. 6-3/4x10-1/4, for $5 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $5 chromos, Group of Chickens, Group of Ducklings, Group of Quails. Each 10x12-1/8. The Poultry Yard. 10-1/8x14. The Barefoot Boy, Wild Fruit. Each 9-3/4x13. Pointer and Quail, Spaniel and Woodcock. 10x12, for $6.50 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $6 chromos, The Baby in Trouble, The Unconscious Sleeper, The Two Friends. Dog and Child. Each 13x16-1/4. Spring, Summer, Autumn, 12-7/8x16-1/8. The Kids' Playground. 11x17-1/2, 4, $7 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $7.50 chromos, strawberries and baskets, cherries and baskets, currants, each 13x18, horses in a storm, 22-1/4x15-1/4, 6 Central Park views, a set, 9-1/8x4-1/2, 4, $8 a copy of paper for 1 year and 6 American landscapes, a set, 4-3/8x9, price $9.00, 4, $9 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $10 chromos, sunset in California, Bierstadt, 18-1/2x12 Easter morning, 14x21, Correggio's Magdalene, 12-1/4x16-3/8, summer fruit and autumn fruit, half chromos, 15-1/2x10-1/2, companions, price $10 for the 2. For $10 remittances should be made in PO orders, drafts, or bank checks on New York, or registered letters. The paper will be sent from the first number, April 2d, 1870, when not otherwise ordered. Postage of paper is payable at the office where received, 20 cents per year, or 5 cents per quarter, in advance. The chromos will be mailed free on receipt of money. Canvassers wanted, to whom liberal commissions will be given. For special terms address the company. The first 10 numbers will be sent to anyone desirous of seeing the paper before subscribing, for 60 cents. A specimen copy sent to anyone desirous of canvassing or getting up a club, on receipt of postage stamp. Address: Punchinello Publishing Co., P.O. Box 2783. Number 83 Nassau Street, New York. A T. Stewart and Company are closing out their stock of French, English, and domestic carpets, oilcloths, rugs, mats, cocoa and canton mattings, and C. at a great reduction in prices, notwithstanding the unexpected extraordinary rise in gold. Customers and strangers are respectfully invited to examine. Broadway, 4th Avenue, 9th and 10th Streets. A.T. Stewart and Company are closing out all their popular stocks of summer dress goods, at prices lower than ever. Broadway, 4th Avenue, 9th and 10th Streets. Extraordinary bargains in ladies' Paris and domestic ready-made suits, robes, reception dresses, and some less than half their cost. And we will daily offer novelties in plain and braided Victoria lawn, linen and piquette traveling suits. Children's braided linen and pique garments, sizes from 2 years to 10 years old. Pannier Bedoin mantles, in choice colors, from $3.50 to $7 each. Richly embroidered cashmere and cloth breakfast jackets, Paris made, $8 each and upward. A T. Stewart and Company Broadway, 4th Ave, 9th and 10th Streets, a passage from Central Park. Whittiers Barefoot Boy. Oh golly! What a shame for that old cuss to chuck the stump of his cigar into the lake, 'stead of dropping it where a fellow could pick it up. Tourists and leisure travelers will be glad to learn that the Erie Railway Company has prepared combination excursion or round-trip tickets, valid during the entire season, and embracing Ithaca, headwaters of Cayuga Lake, Niagara Falls, Lake Ontario, the River St. Lawrence, Montreal, Quebec, Lake Champlain, Lake George, Saratoga, the White Mountains, and all principal points of interest in northern New York, the Canadas, and New England. Also similar tickets at reduced rates, through Lake Superior, enabling travelers to visit the celebrated Iron Mountains and copper mines of that region. By applying at the offices of the Erie Railway Company, numbers 241, 529 and 957 Broadway, 205 Chambers Street, 38 Greenwich Street, Cor. 125th St. and 3rd Avenue Harlem, 338 Fulton Street Brooklyn, depots foot of Chambers Street, and foot of 23rd Street, New York, number 3 Exchange Place and Long Dock Depot, Jersey City, and the agents at the principal hotels. Travelers can obtain just the ticket they desire, as well as all the necessary information. The Printing House of the United States. G.O.F. Nesbitt & Co., General Job Printers, Blank Book Manufacturers, Stationers, Wholesale and Retail, Lithographic Engravers and Printers, Copperplate Engravers and Printers, Card Manufacturers, Envelope Manufacturers, Fine Cut and Color Printers. 163, 165, 167, and 169 Pearl St. 73, 75, 77, and 79 Pine St., New York. Advantages. All on the same premises, and under immediate supervision of the proprietors. Prang's latest publications, Wildflowers, Waterlilies, Chas. Dickens. Prang's chromos sold in all art and bookstores throughout the world. Prang's illustrated catalogue sent free on receipt of stamp. L. Prang & Co., Boston. Punchinello. With a large and varied experience in the management and publication of a paper of the class herewith submitted, and with the still more positive advantage of an ample capital to justify the undertaking, the Punchinello Publishing Co. of the City of New York presents to the public for approval the new illustrated humorous and satirical weekly paper, Punchinello, the first number of which was issued under date of April 2. Original articles, suitable for the paper, and original designs, or suggestive ideas or sketches for illustrations, upon the topics of the day, are always acceptable and will be paid for liberally. Rejected communications cannot be returned, unless postage stamps are enclosed. Terms: 1 copy per year, in advance, $4 single copies. 10 a.m. Specimen copy will be mailed free upon the receipt of 10 cents. 1 copy, with the Riverside magazine, or any other magazine or paper, price, $2.50, 4. 5.501 copy, with any magazine or paper, price, $4, 4. 7.00 All communications, remittances, etc., to be addressed to Punchinello Publishing Co., No. 83 Nassau Street, P.O. Box, 2783, New York. The Mystery of Mr. E. Drood. The new burlesque serial, written expressly for Punchinello, by Orpheus C. Kerr, commenced in number 11. Will be continued weekly throughout the year. A sketch of the eminent author, written by his bosom friend, with superb illustrations of 1st the author's palatial residence at Bagad's Hill, Tickner's Fields, New Jersey. 2nd the author at the door of said palatial residence taken as he appears every Saturday will also be found in the same number. Single copies, for sale by all newsmen, or mailed from this office, free, 10 cents. Subscription for 1 year, 1 copy, with $2 chromo premium. $4. Those desirous of receiving the paper containing this new serial, which promises to be the best ever written by Orpheus C. Kerr, should subscribe now, to ensure its regular receipt weekly. We will send the first 10 numbers of Punchinello to anyone who wishes to see them, in view of subscribing, on the receipt of 60 cents. Address: Punchinello Publishing Company, P.O. Box, 2783, 83 Nassau Street, New York. G.O. W. Wheat & Co., Printer, No. 8 Spruce Street. ******* End of the Project Gutenberg ebook Punchinello, Volume 1, No. 21, the 20th of August, 1870 *********** Updated editions will replace the previous one, the old editions will be renamed. Creating the works from print editions not protected by U.S. copyright law means that no one owns a United States copyright in these works, so the Foundation, and you, can copy and distribute it in the United States without permission and without paying copyright royalties. Special rules, set forth in the general terms of use part of this license, apply to copying and distributing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works to protect the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol concept and trademark. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark, and may not be used if you charge for an ebook, except by following the terms of the trademark license, including paying royalties for use of the Project Gutenberg trademark. If you do not charge anything for copies of this ebook, complying with the trademark license is very easy. You may use this ebook for nearly any purpose such as creation of derivative works, reports, performances and research. Project Gutenberg ebooks may be modified and printed and given away. You may do practically anything in the United States with ebooks not protected by U.S. copyright law. Redistribution is subject to the trademark license, especially commercial redistribution. Start, Full license. The full Project Gutenberg license. Please read this before you distribute or use this work to protect the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol mission of promoting the free distribution of electronic works. By using or distributing this work, or any other work associated in any way with the phrase Project Gutenberg, you agree to comply with all the terms of the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license available with this file or online at www.gutenberg.org/license. Section 1. General Terms of Use and Redistributing Project Gutenberg Trademark Symbol Electronic Works 1.0. By reading or using any part of this Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work, you indicate that you have read, understand, agree to and accept all the terms of this license and intellectual property, trademark/copyright, agreement. If you do not agree to abide by all the terms of this agreement, you must cease using and return or destroy all copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works in your possession. If you paid a fee for obtaining a copy of or access to a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work and you do not agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement, you may obtain a refund from the person or entity to whom you paid the fee as set forth in paragraph 1.e.8. 1.b. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark. It may only be used on or associated in any way with an electronic work by people who agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement. There are a few things that you can do with most Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works even without complying with the full terms of this agreement. See paragraph 1.c below. There are a lot of things you can do with Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works if you follow the terms of this agreement and help preserve free future access to Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works. See paragraph 1.e below. 1.c. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the Foundation or PGLAF, owns a compilation copyright in the collection of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works. Nearly all the individual works in the collection are in the public domain in the United States. If an individual work is unprotected by copyright law in the United States and you are located in the United States, we do not claim a right to prevent you from copying, distributing, performing, displaying or creating derivative works based on the work as long as all references to Project Gutenberg are removed. Of course, we hope that you will support the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol mission of promoting free access to electronic works by freely sharing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works in compliance with the terms of this agreement for keeping the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol name associated with the work. You can easily comply with the terms of this agreement by keeping this work in the same format with its attached full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license when you share it without charge with others. 1.d. The copyright laws of the place where you are located also govern what you can do with this work. Copyright laws in most countries are in a constant state of change. If you are outside the United States, Check the laws of your country in addition to the terms of this agreement before downloading, copying, displaying, performing, distributing or creating derivative works based on this work or any other Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work. The Foundation makes no representations concerning the copyright status of any work in any country other than the United States. 1.e Unless you have removed all references to Project Gutenberg. 1.e.1. The following sentence, with active links to, or other immediate access to, the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license must appear prominently whenever any copy of a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work, any work on which the phrase Project Gutenberg appears, or with which the phrase Project Gutenberg is associated, is accessed, displayed, performed, viewed, copied or distributed. This ebook is for the use of anyone anywhere in the United States and most other parts of the world at no cost and with almost no restrictions whatsoever. You may copy it, give it away or reuse it under the terms of the Project Gutenberg license included with this ebook or online at www.gutenberg.org. If you are not located in the United States, you will have to check the laws of the country where you are located before using this ebook. 1.e.2. If an individual Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work is derived from texts not protected by U.S. copyright law, does not contain a notice indicating that it is posted with permission of the copyright holder, the work can be copied and distributed to anyone in the United States without paying any fees or charges. If you are redistributing or providing access to a work with the phrase Project Gutenberg associated with or appearing on the work, you must comply either with the requirements of paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7 or obtain permission for the use of the work and the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark as set forth in paragraphs 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.3. If an individual Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work is posted with the permission of the copyright holder, your use and distribution must comply with both paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7 and any additional terms imposed by the copyright holder. Additional terms will be linked to the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license for all works posted with the permission of the copyright holder found at the beginning of this work. 1.e.4. Do not unlink or detach or remove the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license terms from this work, or any files containing a part of this work or any other work associated with Project Gutenberg trademark symbol. 1.e.5. Do not copy, display, perform, distribute or redistribute this electronic work, or any part of this electronic work, without prominently displaying the sentence set forth in paragraph 1.e.1 with active links or immediate access to the full terms of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license. 1.e.6. You may convert to and distribute this work in any binary, compressed, marked up, non-proprietary or proprietary form, including any word processing or hypertext form. However, If you provide access to or distribute copies of a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work in a format other than plain vanilla ASCII or other format used in the official version posted on the official Project Gutenberg trademark symbol website, www.gutenberg.org, you must, at no additional cost, fee or expense to the user, provide a copy, a means of exporting a copy, or a means of obtaining a copy upon request, of the work in its original plain vanilla ASCII or other form. Any alternate format must include the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license as specified in paragraph 1.e.1. 1.e.7. Do not charge a fee for access to, viewing, displaying, performing, copying or distributing any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works unless you comply with paragraph 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.8. You may charge a reasonable fee for copies of or providing access to or distributing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works provided that you pay a royalty fee of 20% of the gross profits you derive from the use of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works calculated using the method you already use to calculate your applicable taxes. The fee is owed to the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark, but he has agreed to donate royalties under this paragraph to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Royalty payments must be paid within 60 days following each date on which you prepare, or are legally required to prepare, your periodic tax returns. Royalty payments should be clearly marked as such and sent to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation at the address specified in Section 4, Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. You provide a full refund of any money paid by a user who notifies you in writing, or by email, within 30 days of receipt that he does not agree to the terms of the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license. You must require such a user to return or destroy all copies of the works possessed in a physical medium and discontinue all use of and all access to other copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works. You provide, in accordance with paragraph 1.f.3, a full refund of any money paid for a work or a replacement copy, if a defect in the electronic work is discovered and reported to you within 90 days of receipt of the work. You comply with all other terms of this agreement for free distribution of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works. 1.e.9. If you wish to charge a fee or distribute a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work or group of works on different terms than are set forth in this agreement, you must obtain permission in writing from the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the manager of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark. Contact the Foundation as set forth in Section 3 below. 1.f1.f.1. Project Gutenberg volunteers and employees expend considerable effort to identify, do copyright research on, transcribe and proofread works not protected by U.S. copyright law in creating the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol collection. Despite these efforts, Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works, and the medium on which they may be stored, may contain defects such as, but not limited to, incomplete, inaccurate or corrupt data, transcription errors, a copyright or other intellectual property infringement, a defective or damaged disk or other medium, a computer virus, or computer codes that damage or cannot be read by your equipment. 1.f.2 Limited warranty, disclaimer of damages, except for the right of replacement or refund described in paragraph 1.f.3. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark, and any other party distributing a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work under this agreement, disclaim all liability to you for damages, costs and expenses, including legal fees. You agree that you have no remedies for negligence, strict liability, breach of warranty or breach of contract except those provided in paragraph 1.f.3. You agree that the foundation, the trademark owner, and any distributor under this agreement will not be liable to you for actual, direct, indirect, consequential, punitive or incidental damages even if you give notice of the possibility of such damage. 1.f.3 Limited right of replacement or refund. If you discover a defect in this electronic work within 90 days of receiving it, you can receive a refund of the money, if any, you paid for it by sending a written explanation to the person you received the work from. If you received the work on a physical medium, you must return the medium with your written explanation. The person or entity that provided you with the defective work may elect to provide a replacement copy in lieu of a refund. If you received the work electronically, the person or entity providing it to you may choose to give you a second opportunity to receive the work electronically in lieu of a refund. If the second copy is also defective, you may demand a refund in writing without further opportunities to fix the problem. 1.f.4 Except for the limited right of replacement or refund set forth in paragraph 1.f.3, this work is provided to you as is, with no other warranties of any kind, express or implied, including but not limited to warranties of merchantability or fitness for any purpose. 1.f.5 Some states do not allow disclaimers of certain implied warranties or the exclusion or limitation of certain types of damages. If any disclaimer or limitation set forth in this agreement violates the law of the state applicable to this agreement, the agreement shall be interpreted to make the maximum disclaimer or limitation permitted by the applicable state law. The invalidity or unenforceability of any provision of this agreement shall not void the remaining provisions. 1.f.6 Indemnity. You agree to indemnify and hold the foundation, the trademark owner, any agent or employee of the foundation, anyone providing copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works in accordance with this agreement, and any volunteers associated with the production, promotion and distribution of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works, harmless from all liability, costs and expenses, including legal fees, that arise directly or indirectly from any of the following which you do or cause to occur. A. Distribution of this or any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work. B. Alteration, modification, or additions or deletions to any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work, and C. Any defect you cause. Section 2. Information about the mission of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol is synonymous with the free distribution of electronic works in formats readable by the widest variety of computers, including obsolete, old, middle-aged and new computers. It exists because of the efforts of hundreds of volunteers and donations from people in all walks of life. Volunteers and financial support to provide volunteers with the assistance they need are critical to reaching Project Gutenberg trademark symbol's goals and ensuring that the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol collection will remain freely available for generations to come. In 2001, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation was created to provide a secure and permanent future for Project Gutenberg trademark symbol and future generations. To learn more about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation and how your efforts and donations can help, see sections 3 and 4 and the Foundation information page at www.gutenberg.org. Section 3. Information about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation is a non-profit 501(c)(3) educational corporation organized under the laws of the state of Mississippi and granted tax-exempt status by the Internal Revenue Service. The Foundation's IN or Federal Tax Identification Number is 64-6221541. Contributions to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation are tax-deductible to the full extent permitted by U.S. federal laws and your state's laws. The Foundation's business office is located at 809 North 1500 West, Salt Lake City, UT 84116, 801-596-1887. Email contact links and up-to-date contact information can be found at the Foundation's website and official page at www.gutenberg.org/contact section 4. Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol depends upon and cannot survive without widespread public support and donations to carry out its mission of increasing the number of public domain and licensed works that can be freely distributed in machine-readable form accessible by the widest array of equipment, including outdated equipment. Many small donations, $1 to $5,000, are particularly important to maintaining tax-exempt status with the IRS. The Foundation is committed to complying with the laws regulating charities and charitable donations in all 50 states of the United States. Compliance requirements are not uniform and it takes a considerable effort, much paperwork and many fees to meet and keep up with these requirements. We do not solicit donations in locations where we have not received written confirmation of compliance. To send donations or determine the status of compliance for any particular state, visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. While we cannot and do not solicit contributions from states where we have not met the solicitation requirements, we know of no prohibition against accepting unsolicited donations from donors in such states who approach us with offers to donate. International donations are gratefully accepted, but we cannot make any statements concerning tax treatment of donations received from outside the United States. U.S. laws alone swamp our small staff. Please check the Project Gutenberg web pages for current donation methods and addresses. Donations are accepted in a number of other ways, including checks, online payments and credit card donations. To donate, please visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. Section 5. General information about Project Gutenberg Trademark Symbol Electronic Works. Professor Michael S. Hart was the originator of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol concept of a library of electronic works that could be freely shared with anyone. For 40 years, he produced and distributed Project Gutenberg trademark symbol ebooks with only a loose network of volunteer support. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol ebooks are often created from several printed editions, all of which are confirmed as not protected by copyright in the US unless a copyright notice is included. Thus, we do not necessarily keep ebooks in compliance with any particular paper edition. Most people start at our website, which has the main PG search facility, www.gutenberg.org. This website includes information about Project Gutenberg trademark symbol, including how to make donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, how to help produce our new ebooks, and how to subscribe to our email newsletter to hear about new ebooks. Punchinello Volume 1. Number 21. Published by the Punchinello Publishing Company, 83 Nassau Street, New York. University Series. The full Project Gutenberg license,